You might think that the move component 2 is pretty straightforward, but it's actually harder to use than you would think. It's a very useful node, but it does have some limitations. Let's say you wanted to make a moving platform. Using move component 2 is perfect for this kind of purpose. I'll start off by making a blueprint class. I'll quickly design it using a cylinder. So, after 2 seconds, I want it to move. First, we have to give it the component to move, since it's not moving actors but components in an actor class. Then, let's give it a location. I'll start off by trying 200 on X and see if that's what I'm looking for. Over time is how much time you want it to take, also very useful. It's working, but I want it to move the opposite way. Okay, so after 2 seconds, the cylinder component will move by minus 400. Say we want it to move back. You would think that since we moved it by minus 400, that we will need to move it back by 400, right? Let's try and see. Instead of moving back 400 units, it actually moved 800 units. This is because the move component 2 is using the component's relative location and rotation. This means that to move it back, we will need to set it to be the same values as it originally has here. In this case, that's 0. Now we've got a moving platform. Now let's try rotating the cylinder. So since its current rotation is 0, if I want to move it by 90 degrees, I'll just type in 90. That also works splendid. The ease out and ease in is pretty straightforward and pretty much means exactly what you think. Let's try experimenting with a cylinder in my character class. Its default rotation is not 0 on Y, but minus 90. Z location is also not 0. If you don't want it to move or rotate certain positions, you can either type in its current value directly, or you can get its relative location and rotation as variables. You're now able to move or rotate a component once, but what if you wanted to do it continuously? That's where these variables come in. We can just add or subtract with its current values, and it will keep going. But like I said, the move component too has its limitations. It should in theory keep moving on the same axis, but since rotation is limited to 360 degrees, it will go back and forth like this. Checking the force shortest rotation path will also not help. In fact, this option sounds like it will choose the path of least resistance, and to some degree it does. But I've found this not to be as straightforward and more of a rotation bug fixer. Here, I am not adding to the relative rotation, but it's still rotating when I press it again. But if I check the force rotation, it won't. The move component to node seems to have some issues when dealing with rotation. For example, in this video, I was making Flappy Bird, and while rotating the bird, even though I was not altering the Z rotation at all, it would do so automatically. Doing this with a location should work just fine. Now, let me demonstrate what the stop and return is for. Stop will stop the current movement, and return will make the component go back to its original location, like I did earlier. Also, keep in mind that the completed output will only run code after the component has finished. Using 1 and 2, I will make the component move to opposite locations. You'll see that sometimes, even if I press the opposite button, the component won't move before it's finished its current path. That's why stopping it can be useful. Now, when I stop it before moving it the opposite way, It works flawlessly. You can also move components like the camera, for example, and use it to create an aim down sight system. You will also need to attach the camera for this, though. If you want to move several components in the same actor to the same place, instead of using a sequence and moving two or more components at once, you can just parent one to the other. And by moving the parent, the other will follow. That about covers how to use the move to using its relative location or rotation. But like I said before, there are some limitations. If you want the component to move somewhere, but you rotate or move the actor at some point, the relative location and rotation will get messed up. So if we wanted to move the component to a specific location, regardless of anything, we can't do it like this, unfortunately. Do you think there is a way we can move it to a desired location, regardless of the owning actor's location and rotation? Think about this for a few seconds before I reveal the answer. Luckily, there is a bit of a workaround. Since we can't set the move component to's location directly, we can instead use another component and use that component's relative location. But it gets even better. For example, I will use my character to cast to the platform class and call the move event. In the event, I will set the sphere's location to mine. You can set its location using the set world location node. Then the cylinder will move to the sphere. There's so many things you can do with this. I bet your imagination is getting worked up.